رحم الله من قرأ سورة الباركة الفاتحة تسبقها الصلوات. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين، أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله، صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله، روحي وجسمي وأرواح العالمين لك الفداء. يا غريب يا مظلوم يا شهيد بأرض كربلاء، أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. صلوا على محمد وآله. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Last night I was talking about the importance of the environment in Islam, nature itself. That nature is the symbol, is an emblem, is a sign towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, anything which reminds you of the presence of Allah is an ayatullah. And this can include, the ayat can include a wide range of things. Human beings, animals, mountains, the sun itself. And that nature is the best Muslim. And that human beings have to learn from nature. Because nature always obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I talked of how nature is in a state of balance, what is called i'tidal. That everything is in such a state of balance that even when you look at, for example, a millipede, a small little insect, yet it is so much in balance that you have to wonder and marvel at the one who has created it. That if the sun was a bit closer, we'd all burn. If the moon was a bit further away, we'd drown with tsunamis and so on. And that many a time we want to see Allah in destruction rather than in construction. It's not maybe just a coincidence, but you heard of the earthquake today in California. These, of course, are part of nature and the way nature operates. But it tells us something that if I was to bring a painting in front of you, you would not tell me destroy it, then I will see how great it is. You will marvel at it the way it is there. But when it comes to Allah, people would tell Allah, bring the skies down on us or split the earth into two, then we'll believe in you. If that were to happen, there'd be nobody there to actually believe in Allah. It is quite a coincidence that before I actually stepped here to talk about today's subject, one of the brothers asked me that his daughter was wondering, how do we know about Karbala? How do we know the authenticity? Where do we get our sources from? And I said to him that by a mere coincidence, or maybe Allah planned it that way, that I was going to talk about that subject tonight. That how do we know what happened? You've been hearing about Karbala, about Bibi Zainab, about Hazrat Abbas, etc. How do we know about it? It's a genuine and legitimate question. Especially the younger generation, the first question they ask is why, how, and so on. Unlike you and me, we were just given the information and we took it for granted. We never questioned it. But today I think it's an important question and I wish to address it today. A historian is like a detective. A detective is one, if there is, for example, a murder and we do not have a suspect in front of us, they try and draw what is called a composite picture of a picture of a person, what he may have looked like, may be drawn on different accounts. A true historian is trying to go back in history and try to see how it may have happened or how it did happen. But he cannot be sure that this is exactly the way it happened. As a historian, and I'm trained as a historian, my training was in the Department of History. We always go back to the earliest sources. As much as possible, we go to people who were there, or at least who saw what happened or who heard what happened. First-hand account, as we call it. We call these primary sources. Primary because they are the first-hand sources. Then come the secondary sources. In other words, those who are later report about what they heard or what they read from those who wrote earliest. I don't know about you, but about me personally, when I was younger, we would hear that Ravi kehta hai, that Ravi is telling us. Who is this Ravi? I thought as a young boy that there was a person called Ravi, and that was his name. But Ravi comes from the word rivaya, means somebody who narrates. Well, if I tell you that somebody narrated, your first question will be, who is this somebody? What's his name? Was he there? How do we know? And so on. When we are talking about the history of Karbala, we should realize that we're not talking about just one particular book, because otherwise we could question that book. Well, who was this person who wrote it? How do we know he is authentic? How do we know he is not a liar? These are questions that historians always ask, by the way. Many people don't ask it, they take it for granted. Many times we trust these members so much that whatever is spoken there, we assume that the person has done research and is telling us, which is a legitimate point. But at the same time, when we are talking about Karbala, there is not one single source. Allama Mutahari wrote a book about the myths of Karbala, because there are so many things that are being said which frankly are hard to believe. So he wrote about the myths of Karbala. And he said that he doesn't only cry for Imam Hussein, he also cries for those who wrote things which are improper about Imam Hussein. Sometimes when we hear certain things, we do not have to take them literally. Sometimes they are taken poetically or metaphorically. So for example, we hear that Asman se barish aya, that it rained from the sky, it rained blood. It does not mean that literally there was blood. It just shows that there was so much grief that even the skies cried. It does not mean literally. In English, I do not know whether we use the term in America, but in England they do. The cows come home. The cows do not come home. It means that there's certain things that come to your place. Or they says it rained cats and dogs. Now, when you say cats and dogs, it rained cats and dogs. Do you think cats and dogs came down from the sky? No. It means it rained a lot. So when poets use certain language, do not take it literally. So sometimes poetical language, by the way, is very emotional. Poetry is very emotional, and the Arabs, Persians, and especially our Urdu audience, they just love poetry because it talks to your heart, not only to your mind. There was one author in the medieval ages called Mullah Hussein al-Kashifi. Mullah Hussein Kashifi wrote a book called Rawdatul Shuhada, the Gardens of Those of the Martyrs. And some of his language, some of the things that he said were poetic, and people did not have to take in literally. For example, and Mutahari cites this, that he said, Mullah Hussein Kashifi said that Imam Hussein killed 300,000 people on the day of Ashur. Now, there were not 300,000 people there to start with. And he says, I'm quoting Allama Mutahari, it's not me, that supposing he did kill 300,000 and he killed one person every second, if he killed, Imam Hussein killed one person every second, it would still take him 82 hours to finish off 300,000 people. Now, the battle did not last that long. It just lasted barely about 6-7 hours. So obviously, this was not correct. And there are so many other stories that we hear. And as human beings, especially the younger generation, we need to question, not just accept it. Zafar Jinn, for example. There was no Zafar Jinn there. However, there are certain things that we know for sure that did happen. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his mission and his principles and what he stood for and what he died for does not need any exaggeration. The fact that you remember Imam Hussein, the fact that you remember the calamities and the principles he stood for are enough to make you cry. You do not need to exaggerate at all. As somebody said very correctly, if you have nothing to die for, you have nothing to live for. If you have nothing to die for, you have nothing to live for. In other words, there must be certain principles, certain things that we should be willing to give our lives for, because those principles are human principles. They touch us as human beings. And this is what Imam Hussein does. Imam Hussein is not only a Shia figure or a Muslim figure. Hindus will mark his death. You go to India, you go to Pakistan, for example, you'll find that even non-Muslims will come and cry for Hussein. They will do matam too. They're called Brahmins, Muslims or whatever. They will do matam. I remember in my country especially, we do the procession on the 9th of Muharram. You will find Sunnis, non-Muslims, Africans, they'll join the procession, especially on the night of Hazrat Abbas. In any case then, who are the sources that we depend on? Which are the sources? The first and most important person is a person who was called Lut bin Yahya, popularly known as Abi Mikhnaf. Abi Mikhnaf was born just a few years after the events of Karbala. He wrote many, many books, this Abu Mikhnaf did. He died about 80, 90 years after the events of Karbala. So he was not there, but he talked to people who were there. Or he heard from people who talked to people. And therefore he said, قَدْ شَهِدَ مَقْتَلَ الْحُسَيْنِ. He, Abu Mikhnaf, has a book called Maqtalul Hussein, one of the earliest books. In other words, the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. And he says very clearly that this person, he names him also, this person was there in Karbala. Or this person talked to somebody who was there in Karbala. So his book is very, very important for us as the earliest source. Unfortunately, his own book is no longer with us, but others read it and they have reported about it. Totally, Abu Mikhnaf wrote 32 books on various issues. He was a specialist in battles on Maqtal. So he talks about, he has a book on Jamal, he has a book on Siffin, but he also has a book on Karbala. As I said, he talked to people who were there in Karbala. In many cases, haddathani means he told me about this, what happened. There was a historian called At-Tabari. You may have heard of him. At-Tabari is a very, very important and prominent scholar in Muslim history. He has written on different subjects. He's written on tafsir of the Quran. What we call exegesis means tafsir of the Quran. But he's also written an 8-volume book on the history of Muslims. Tarikhul Islam, or his book is called Tarikhul Muluk wa Ursul wal Muluk. The history of the prophets and the messengers and the kingdoms. It is interesting that many a time we condemn the Orientalists, we condemn Western scholars that they have biases. But his book, Tabari's book, has been translated by non-Muslims. Can you imagine? It's in English now. You can get PDF of his book. Tarikhul Tabari is in 8 volumes, original. And these scholars, mashallah, wrote a lot. Each volume is about 400 pages. Each volume is about 400 pages. That makes it over 3,000 pages total. But the translation is in 30 volumes. And interestingly, one of this whole volume is on Karbala. Tabari wrote on, although he was a Sunni scholar, but he was a fair scholar. In other words, he reported from different sides. He did not report on one side only. So, for example, Tabari says that someone called Aqaba, we will talk about him in a few minutes, Aqaba says that, because before this he said that somebody said that Imam Hussein said to Umar ibn Sa'ad, that take me to Yazid and I will give bay'at to him. Na'udhu billah. He reports, someone says it, that Imam Hussein said on the day of Ashura, that take me to Yazid and I'll give bay'ah to him. If Imam Hussein was willing to give bay'ah, then what was the battle for? What was the whole purpose of fighting? Immediately he quotes this Sam'an. Sam'an, by the way, was actually the slave of Umar Rubab. He was there. He was not killed and they freed him because he was a slave. But he reports, and Tabari reports from this Sam'an saying that I was there with Hussein ibn Ali all the time, the whole time, and he never said this. This is a lie. So you see how Tabari becomes important for us. And as I say, the whole book, the whole history of Tabari has actually been preserved and translated into English. Abu Mikhnaf then occupies the first and most important source. But as I said, we cannot depend only on one source, because people can question Abu Mikhnaf. How do we know? Maybe he made it up. Maybe this, maybe that. So as historians, and our scholars are masters of this, we depend on different sources. One of the other sources that we depend on is a book by Sheikh al-Mufid. You may have heard his name. Sheikh al-Mufid has written 200 books. I write 2 or 3 books. I think, mashallah, what a wonderful job I've done. Biharul Anwar of Allama Majlisi, just the Bihar is 110 volumes. And each volume is about 400 pages. I pity his wife. I don't think he had too much time for her. But of course, there were students helping him too. But that goes to show how much our ulama were engaged in scholarship. For those who do not know Sheikh al-Mufid, when you go to do the ziyarat of Imam al-Qadhim alayhi salam, as you enter the haram from Babul Murad, as you are about to enter near the Dari, on the right side, you'll find 2 graves there, the shrine. One of them is Sheikh al-Mufid, and the other one is Ibn Qawlaway, the teacher of Sheikh Mufid. They are buried there. I always go and recite Fatiha for them. In any case, then, Sheikh al-Mufid, amongst his 200 books, is one book called Kitab al-Irshad, the book of guidance, which again has been translated into English. And by the way, I gave you that site the other day, alislam.org, which is a Shia site. You should go and visit it. It's important for us. And we don't have any excuse these days, though we don't know anything, we don't understand Arabic or on Arabian Baladnistan. There's no excuse now. It's all in English and it's online also. Sheikh Mufid reports on all the 12 Imams. He has a chapter for each Imam. And one of the chapters is on Al-Imam al-Hussein. And in this, he reports again from different sources, not from Abu Mikhnaf only. He reports other sources too. So, for example, sometimes he reports from Bibi Zainab. Hazrat Zainab was there all the time. Sometimes he reports from Imam Sajjad, Imam Zain al-Abidin. So because of this, then, what we do is match up all these reports in order to come to a reasonably accurate picture of what happened there. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alim. Apart from Sheikh Mufid, and by the way, Sheikh Mufid was very careful. He was a scholar of not just hadith, but also of reason. Anything which did not go into his head, he did not report. Many a time we find that Sheikh Mufid disputes with his own teacher. One of his teachers was Sheikh Saduq. Some of you who come from Qum or in Iran will remember Sheikh Saduq Ibn Babaway, also called, is buried in Qum. And one of his teachers, Mufid's teacher, was Sheikh Saduq, and sometimes Sheikh Saduq wrote something that Mufid did not agree with. That goes to show how our scholars were very, very careful and were also willing to dispute with each other. One of the great scholars later on was Ibn Tawus, although Ibn Tawus writes much later on in the 13th century. He also has written a lot about Karbala and also about Arba'in, about what happened in Arba'in. Later on, we have other scholars too. So where do these sources come from? They're from the different sources then. As I explained, Abu Mikhnaf, Sheikh al-Mufid, sometimes people who are actually in the enemy's camp, they witnessed it. And they reported it. They survived, who were actually in the army of Yazid and Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad. So soldiers from Ibn Sa'd's army, Umar ibn Sa'd's army, they also talked about it. There were some companions of Imam Hussein who survived. One of them was a person called by the name of Dhahak al-Hamadani. This Dhahak was an unusual figure because he happened to join Imam Hussein on the way to Karbala. But he also came up with an agreement with Imam Hussein that when I find it correct, I will also leave you. I will leave you. We don't hear about this thing, but if I want to, I will leave you. The Imam agreed with him. So Dhahak actually, on the day of Ashur, when he found that the army was being defeated of Imam Hussein is now being killed or about to be killed, he left the army because that was the agreement with Imam Hussein. However, importantly, this Dhahak was actually in the camp of Imam Hussein. He was not on the other side. He was not in the army of Umar ibn Sa'd. He was actually with Imam Hussein. So he knew exactly what happened in the tents, the conversations, everything that took place in the tents of Imam Hussein, the army would not know. But Dhahak, being there, a companion of Imam Hussein until the very end, he reported it. So, for example, he reports on the atmosphere of Imam Hussein's camp, the conversation that took place between Imam Hussein and Hazrat Zainab, or between Imam Hussein and the army of Imam Hussein. He tells us about the sequence of events, what actually happened on the day of Ashura. He also tells us how Imam Hussein spoke and conducted with his own companions. So he, that is Dhahak, provides us with a rare first-hand account of what happened. And I want to emphasize this so that people should not think that we are just making up these hadith, that these hadiths are coming out of the air. No, because believe me, this member is a great responsibility. I do recite from the member, but I prefer it with my cell phone to be easier from the podium. But whoever goes up there has a great responsibility to deliver the message of the Prophet and the Imams. And therefore, we cannot take this lightly, because anybody who goes on the member will be questioned on the day of judgment. You said this, where did you get it from? Did you just say to please the people? This is not a pleasing, this is a very serious issue. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Apart from these other sources, we have other people who reported about Karbala. One of them was Imam Zain al-Abidin. Again, he was within the camp of Imam Hussein, and he survived. It was Allah's miracle that he did survive, not only because the Imamate flowed through him, but because of him that we hear of so many reports of what happened in Karbala. One of the most important sources on Karbala, again you may have heard his name, is Hamid bin Muslim. We also call Humayd bin Muslim. Now the problem with Arabic is if you don't have the vowels, you can read it two ways, either Hamid or Humayd. Whichever way that you read it, it doesn't really matter. Humayd bin Muslim was actually in the army of the opposite side of Umar ibn Sa'd. But he was not a fighter. He was a reporter. If you like, someone like, if in today's world, he was a CNN of that time. So he reports a lot. And he talks of what happened on Umar ibn Sa'd's side. So can you see, we have people who are actually in Imam Hussein's camp reporting from us to us, and the people who are on the opposite side also reporting to us. Abu Mikhnaf, who I mentioned earlier, also reports from Humayd bin Muslim. He says, Humayd bin Muslim said this and that. So what does Humayd bin Muslim tell us? He tells us about the death of Ali Akbar, for example. The last fight of Imam Hussein is reported to us by Humayd bin Muslim. Also, he tells us what happened after Imam Hussein was martyred. So you can see the amount of information that Humayd bin Muslim says. He tells us about what happened when the army came to the tent of Imam Hussein after he was martyred. Why did he speak so much? Because from what we understand, we've heard of Mukhtar, right? Mukhtar is the one who took revenge for those who carried out what they did in Karbala. Mukhtar gave Humayd bin Muslim amnesty in return for telling him what actually happened. Because history has to be documented. Remember this much, that the Umayyads, Yazid, Ubaidullah, wanted to wipe out history. They did not want people to know what actually happened. And in those days, there was no Google, the information was very difficult. And therefore, having these people talk to us and telling us was very important. One of the important narrators, by the way, is Hazrat Zainab herself. She also narrated, especially when she was able to. She is the one who talked to the ladies in Damascus, remember. Hazrat Zainab, when she entered Damascus, the people were rejoicing. They thought these were Bughat, these were rebels who were fighting against the Amir, Yazid. But when she left Damascus, those same people were crying because they knew what actually happened. This Humayd bin Muslim then tells us about different things. He tells us, for example, on Sham-e Ghariba, that Shimr bin Dhul Jawshan wanted to burn the tents of Imam Hussein. And this Humayd argued with him. Shimr wanted to kill Imam Sajjad. Humayd argued with him that this is not proper. But as I say, they still burned the tents in any case. This Humayd bin Muslim also, I think I mentioned it earlier, but in case people have forgotten who were not here, the head of Imam Hussein was taken to Kufa on the same day, not the next day. The Qafilah moved the next day. But the head of Imam Hussein was taken the same day to Ibn Ziyad. Humayd bin Muslim and Khawli took it. Together they went to Kufa. And if you recall, I said that Khawli took this as a present for his wife. If you recall, and how his wife said, I will not take this present, I will not sleep with you, I will divorce you. This was Khawli's wife. But one of the person who took this there was this Humayd bin Muslim. I have a long list of things that Humayd bin Muslim reports on. But very briefly, I'm not going to mention all of that because it'll take a long time. There's a lot of things that he reported on. For example, he talks of the letter that Shimr brought from Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad to Umar ibn Sa'd. He tells us about the speech, and especially the very moving speech of Imam Hussein when Ali Akbar died. Because one of the most profound and most difficult time on the day of Ashur for Imam Hussein was when he went to the body of Ali Akbar. Humayd bin Muslim reports to us the report of Imam Hussein's martyrdom after, and his own and his companions' martyrdom also, that the dispute sometimes between the army of Umar ibn Sa'd and Humayd bin Muslim was there not only in Karbala but even after Karbala. So he tells us what happened in Kufa, what happened in Sham. He tells us that because Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad played with the lips of Imam Hussein in the Darbar of Kufa. At that time, a Sahabi of the Prophet gets up, says his name was Khuli, not Khuli, it was Zayd bin Arqam. And Zayd bin Arqam says, take that stick out of the lips of Hussein, because I have seen the Prophet himself was kissing those lips. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali. Humayd bin Muslim also tells us about the speech of Bibi Zainab. Many a time people ask, how do we know about this speech? And it's one thing also that we should remember, and we may find this difficult, because in our generation, we depend so much on our eyes. We are too bookish, we depended on books. Now we are too laptopish, now we're too social media-ish, and so on. In those days, they did not have this. But what they did do was to memorize. We have fantastic memory powers, but we depend so much on our eyesight, we forget our insight. Though many of these people were illiterate, they could not read or write, or many of them were trained to actually memorize khutbahs after khutbahs. So sometimes people ask me, this khutbah is so long, how do we know it's genuine? Because those people use their memory powers. Again, we have to realize that we are talking of events or things that happened 1400 years ago. So, for example, people ask me, and you've heard this, that Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam had 4,000 students, right? You've heard about that. Well, people ask me, well, How could Imam Sadiq have 4,000 students when there was no microphone in those days? Well, it's an interesting question again, a very important question. The truth is this: they had what they call mukarrir. So when the Imam spoke, or even when the Prophet spoke at Ghadir, there were over 100,000 people. There were people who were repeating what he said on the first line and the second row, and then so on, so that the message could go through to all the people there. And when we say that Imam As-Sadiq had 4,000 students, it does not mean that all 4,000 were there at one particular time. I've had, frankly, a few thousand students myself, but they were not all there at one time. They were spread out at different times and on different occasions. So it is important that we ourselves ask certain questions. Do not take things for granted. Why was Hur buried outside Karbala, for example? It's an important question. When you go to Karbala, in the Haram itself, Hur is not buried there. He's buried about at least 20, 30 kilometers away, because his Qabila, his tribe, came and took his body away. Habib, as you know, is buried separately from the others. And again, because Habib's tribe was right there in Karbala, Banu Asad, and they came and buried his body separately. These are certain questions that we need to answer. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. My sisters and brothers, it's time that we recite the bayan of tonight, the 9th of Muharram. But before I do that, I would like to first of all thank everybody for coming and listening to my majalis, because on the 10th, the day of Ashur, I will only do the bayan or the masaib only. And there will be one more lecture on Friday. We hope to see you there. But this is a community that I've been visiting for over 30 years. I came to North America in 1990, and I've been here several times. Many of you remember me from the old center. I even recited 20 years ago in the old center, the whole of Muharram. The reason I'm mentioning is you are all very dear to me. And although I have not been asked by anybody to say this, it's important that you realize that the unity of the community is most important. In this, especially in this environment, especially in this culture, because I've said repeatedly that the survival of the community depends a lot on the center. Not only this center, any center, because this is where the children get their knowledge from. This is where they get to meet with each other. This is where they get to actually blend with each other. And therefore, any community, take any community in the world, is going to have differences. There is no community that I know, even the Khoja community, we have a lot of our own differences. But when it comes to the center, we are all one. Despite our differences, we all merge together. And I know that it becomes even more challenging when the community is based ethnically based, culturally based. There are some people from Afghanistan, from Iran, some from Pakistan, from Africa, and so on. But it's important that you come together with remembering that sole purpose, that you are here for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He is the one who has sacrificed everything so that he can continue the lessons of Imam Hussein. And especially, you are here for the next generation. I've told you before that I am what I am today because of my teachers back in Dar es Salaam and Zanzibar, who brought me up and trained me. Had it not been for them, I would not have been here. And therefore, for the sake of your next generation, whether it is because of their education, they're coming together, they're having positive peer pressure, please put your differences aside and remember that the message of Imam Hussein is more important than anything. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alim. It is the eve of Ashur, the eve of Qiyamah, I would say, because it was on this day that Shimr Mal'un, he comes to Karbala. Umar ibn Sa'd had written to Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad that Umar ibn Sa'd and Imam Hussein had stayed up talking long nights, seeing if they could avert the battle. There was a way of getting around this battle. But when Ubaidullah received that letter of Umar ibn Sa'd, Shimr says, do that. If you don't get the bay'ah from Hussein now, you'll never get it. So Ubaidullah wrote a letter to Umar ibn Sa'd that this letter is being brought to you by Shimr. Get the head of Hussein or Bayat immediately. And if you can't do it, then give the leadership to Shimr. It is ironic, perhaps, how people can be swayed, bought over by money. They will sell their akhirah for the sake of money. This Shimr was fighting for Imam Ali at Siffin. He is the one who fought for Imam Ali, not against him. And yet when it comes to Karbala, he fights against Imam Hussein. Because of what? As we say in our language, paise ki lalach, that all because of money. He changed his sides for the sake of money. People will sell their own mothers, their own selves for the sake of money. Here was Shimr then bringing that letter to Ibn Sa'd in Karbala. When Ibn Sa'd saw that letter, he says to Shimr, I know this was your doing. You are the one who is responsible for this. Ibn Sa'd felt threatened. Sheikh Mufid tells us that on the eve of Ashur, on the 9th of Muharram, at around Asr time, Imam Hussein was sitting outside his tent and he dozed off. And suddenly his sister Zainab comes to him, says, oh my brother, wake up. Don't you see the army is coming towards us? Imam Hussein opens his eyes and he says to his sister, Ya Zainab, I've just seen our grandfather in my vision. And he says, Ya Hussein, anta taruhu ilayna. Oh Hussein, you are coming towards us. We're waiting for you. And then Imam Hussein asks Abbas, go to them, ask them, what do they want? Abbas comes back and says, Mawla, they want to start fighting today. Look at the words of Imam Hussein. He says, tell them we wanted one extra night. We want one extra night. لَعَلَّنَا نُصَلِّ لِرَبِّنَا وَنَدْعُوهُ فهو يعلم إني قد كنت أحب الصلاة له وتلاوة كتابه وكثرة الدعاء والاستغفار. Because my Lord knows, O Abbas, I always used to love to pray to him. Hussein just doesn't pray. He prays with love. I always used to love to pray to him. I used to love to recite his book. I used to love to do the tasbih and the istighfar. I wanted one extra night. Isn't Imam Hussein teaching us a lesson? Wasn't he going to go to Jannah? Of course he was. But yet he says, even if you know you're going to go to Jannah, do not forget your salat. Because the salat is very important. Hazrat Abbas comes back and he says, they've given us one night. Today is the final night of these people, of Hussein and his companions. Imam Hussein at that time, he recites a poem which Sheikh Mufid, who I mentioned earlier, has preserved. The poem reads as follows. How many companions and supporters will be killed? Time will not be content with any substitute. The affairs will rest with the Mighty One. The affairs will rest with Allah. For every living being journeys back to Him. Every human being will go back to Allah. And every human being will journey along my path. Imam Zainul Abidin says, when I heard my father say this, I knew that he was pronouncing his death. He was telling us that tomorrow he was going to die. I tried to stop myself from crying, but my Aunt Zainab could not stop herself. She says, what are you telling me, oh my brother? How can I survive without you? I cannot live without you. Imam Hussein now is giving strength to Zainab. Oh Zainab, be strong after me. You are going to be the head of this little army from tomorrow. Promise me that you will be strong with them. Oh Zainab, your jihad will start when my jihad finishes. Azadarana Hussein, after the Maghribain prayers, Imam Hussein gathers his companions in front of him and he says, Inni la a'lamu ashaba awla wa la khayra min ashabi. I do not know of better or more worthier companions than my companions. You are the best companions that anybody could want, oh my people. These people, this army want only me, not you. I'm freeing you. I'm removing my bay'at from you. You may now leave me. First, Abbas stands up. Leave you, Ma Mawla? How can we leave you? What are we going to answer the Prophet tomorrow? What are we going to go and say to Hazrat Fatima tomorrow? Zuhair bin Kainstein's Muslim bin Ausaja, they say, even if we are cut into pieces, we will not leave your Hussein. One by one, they stand up and pledge their allegiance. And they go to Hazrat Zainab, says, oh, Bibi, if you say so, we will die right now in front of you, but we will not leave your brother. At that time, Zainab was satisfied that these people are truly committed to Imam Hussein. Azadaran Hussein, Shabi Ashur was the night when Imam Hussein and his companions, you could hear the whispering of the prayers of Hussein and his companions. One of the verses that Imam Hussein would recite frequently, وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مَحِينٌ. Those who do kufr should not think that we are giving them extra time so that it is better for them, or that we are favoring them. Instead, this extra time is that they can increase their sins, but we will punish them one day. Imam Hussein was referring to his enemies. On the day of Ashur, Imam Hussein turns to Ali Akbar. He turns to Ali Akbar and says, do the adhan. Ali Akbar does the adhan, Azadar and Hussein. And then Hussein is standing in front of his tent with his army, with a small army. On one flank is Zuhair. On the other flank is Habib. In the middle is Abbas. Imam Hussein, we shall recite the full Maktal tomorrow. He goes to his own enemies and talks to them. One by one, the companions give their lives. A time comes when Muslim bin Ausaja, he does the wasiyah to Habib that do not leave Hussein alone. Abbas is also gone. A time comes when Ali Akbar's lash is lifted by his own father to the tents. Asadarana Hussein, a time comes when all the companions have gone now. Nobody is there. Hussein comes out from his tent. He looks right. He looks left. He can only see the enemy. He says, Aina anta ya Abbas? Aina anta ya Zuhair? Aina anta ya Muslim? Aina anta ya Ali? Nobody is answering now. Then he does his hujjah so that nobody can say that we did not know Hussein was alone or that he wanted our help. He says, Hal min nasirin yansuruna? Hal min mughithu yughithuna? Is there anybody who can come to our help? Anybody can assist? Hi, Sadar and Hussein. Nobody said anything from the army, but the ladies were crying in the tent. Hussein comes back to the tent, says, ladies, I'm still alive. They say, oh Hussein, when you were asking for help, the little baby cried. It's as if he was telling you that I'm here for you, oh my father. Hussein takes little Ali Asghar in his hand. He says, this child of mine, the mother has no milk. It is thirsty. I'm sure even the army are fathers. They are human beings too. They must have little children. Hussein wraps little Ali Asghar in a shawl. He comes in front of the army. The army think that this was the Quran that Hussein brought. He opens the shawl. They see a little baby that is actually asking for water and crying out for water. Hussein says, oh people, if I have done wrong to you, what has this little baby done wrong to you? The mother has no milk. It is very thirsty. The army does not respond. Hussein looks at them. He puts the little child on the plains of Karbala. Oh people, if you think that I will drink that water, you come and feed that little child water. It is begging for water. Hussein is looking at them. Even the army now is perturbed. They are fathers also. They are looking at each other. Omar ibn Sa'ad says to Harmala, he's scared his own army will turn against him. He turns to Harmala, Ya Harmala, ikta kalam al-Hussein. And the kalam of Hussein, we don't want to hear him. I'm scared my army will turn against me. Harmala was one of those who was an expert archman. He could not miss, but the riwayat says he fired not one, not two, but 3 arrows before he killed Ali Asghar. When he was asked later on, what happened to you, Harmala? Harmala said, if only you saw what I saw. When I aimed the first arrow, I saw the Prophet in front of me. When I fired the second arrow, I saw a lady. She's telling me, do not kill my little baby. My little baby is innocent. He fired the third arrow. The third arrow went from one side of the throat to the other of the little Ali Asghar. Can you imagine what Hussein was going through? He lifts a little baby. He turns towards Allah. Allahumma ahkum baynana wa baynal qawm da'una faqataluna. Ya Allah, you bear witness against these people. They invited us, now they're killing us. They kill even a little 6-month-old baby. For the first time, Hussein shows hesitation, taraddud on the day of Ashur. He doesn't know what he's going to tell Umar Rabab. Azadar and Hussein, when we do the Amal tomorrow, we will walk 7 times back and forth. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan biqadaihi wa tasliman li amri. Why do we do that? Because this is what has happened to Hussein. He did not know what to say to Umar Rabab. He finally says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ridan biqadaihi wa tasliman li amri. He goes into the tent. Umar Rabab removes the shawl, thinking that my little baby has got water. When she saw the blood around the throat of Ali Asghar, Amithlu hadha yunhar. Do they even slaughter a little children? Don't they have any humanity? The final scenes of Zadar and Hussein, that not even an enemy should see. Hussein and Umar Rabab go behind the tent. They are digging a little grave for little Ali Asghar. When the Kafilah came from Damascus to Karbala, when they entered Karbala, they stayed there, they did a ziyarat. When they were about to leave Karbala to go to Medina, Zainab is making sure that everybody is mounted on the camel. She sees there's one camel which is empty. Who is missing? She sees a tent and she hears a lady cry. She goes into the tent. Umar Rabab, we are leaving for Medina. Let's go to Medina. Umar Rabab says, I'm not going anywhere. My little Ali Asghar is buried here. Mata mein Hussein.